Hello everybody. I thought I'd do a few steps on a ceramic to show you painting smock. You need this, trust me. It's an old shirt my friend gave me. I talked about it in other videos. Forgive me if I rattle things around. And if you hear the music in the background, it is not mine. I do not own the rights. It's a group called Acapella, and this is their album, We Have Seen His Glory. Okay, this is a little music box I picked up. Isn't she pretty? We're gonna start with her skin tone. Now, if you need to store your paints and you would like to keep them all in one place, all in one area, like I showed you before, you divide them up. Hold on, gotta move that stuff. I went to the Dollar Tree. I know Dollar General has these, but I didn't spend a lot. Dollar Tree has these bins, all kinds of colors, all sizes. But I like the big flat ones with the taller side, with the inch or so sides, because you can move the whole flat. And I separate my paints, like I've told you before, into, you know, specialty paints. But see, you've got the whole thing in the chair there, and you can look down, see your paints. It makes it a lot easier than having them spread all over Kingdom Come. And plus, that way I can move my other flat that has my colors for my paints and stuff in it. Found another ceramic that I want to paint later. Now, I use different colors for my skin tone depending on what I want. I'll use dark mocha for a darker skin tone, light mocha for lighter skin tone. I'll use medium flesh, although I will tell you, if you're looking at Walmart or something for the medium flesh color, which is a 50-cent bottle, it is very difficult to find that particular color. So this one's khaki. I think that's what we'll use this time. We'll give her a little darker skin tone. So I've got, and I know I say a lot, sorry about that. My teachers would have had problems with that. This is light beige. This is light, this is the khaki. Okay, there's your difference. We're gonna use the light beige, change my mind. But you wanna have different skin tones for your customers. Someone might request something specific. I did a nativity for a lady, and she wanted them to be a colored nativity, which I had no problems with. I just found a darker colored brown, it was a dark khaki that I used because she wanted me to match skin tones. Or now a friend of mine doesn't use that for skin tones. She actually uses makeup foundation. I don't do that, but it works, and her pieces do still look good. So there's other options out there. If you want really believable skin tones, the makeup foundation's the way to go. The only reason I don't use that particular technique is, number one, you really got to seal it in between your coats of makeup foundation because it acts different on the ceramic. Number two, it's more expensive. And I'd rather shunt my extra money. To be honest, I sell these ceramics because I sell plants that I grow. Because the extra money, even if it's $5 or $10, I'm working on paying off debts. If I can add a little more to that, and then I want to get savings of 2 to 3 months of expenses, no matter what might happen after I pay off my debts. I also want to open a tutoring center. So there's a lot of ways I can use the money. So this is not only fun, it's therapeutic, and I never ever source my ceramics for. I saw a fairy I would love to do. She was a little shelf sitter. She was $19.95. I passed it up because if I spent $20 on the ceramic and then the labor of painting it and then my materials, my paints, my brushes, I would have to sell her for a lot more. Things like this, I paid $1 for her. I can sell her for $5 and still make profit. Or $10. I usually sell something this size for about $10. And I don't charge extra because she's a music box. The bigger stuff I do is $10 unless it has something like a plant inside it or something like that. Then I'll add $5 for the plant, so $15. I don't do real expensive stuff. You know, I had to do a pair of swans that were about 3 foot tall, and I charged her $50 for both because they were so large. I had to cover my paint expenses, but I only charged $25 per swan for a 3 foot tall ceramic. I don't believe in charging an arm and a leg just to get ahead. Even when I open my tutoring center, I'm not going to do that to people. So source your ceramics locally. You can use thrift shops. There's great places to get. This is where she came from, the local thrift shop. And just because the piece has paint on it doesn't mean you pass it up. You can use sandpaper to get the paint off, or just paint over the paint with a primer coat. There we go. Get some of the paint off the tip. You don't want globs of excess paint on your work. Now, if you're having trouble holding items, your hands shake or whatever, you can put down a book or something to raise it up if you're legally blind like me, but brace your wrist. I like to use the edge of the table. And that way you can steady your hand. Now, we just go in and lightly go in the creases, like around the nose, around the mouth, with the very tip of the brush, because you want to get the creases first, under the eyes, very gently. And see, didn't really change her color. That's fine. This is only a first coat. We may be happy with the first coat, we may not. But gently, I'm not putting hardly any pressure. You don't need to put a lot of pressure on your brushes when you paint ceramics. Now, I know if you're painting canvas, the pressure you put on the brush can change. But with ceramics, you're just gliding smoothly over the surface. And see, it's not changing her color. So if you really want a drastic change, you can do 2 or 3 coats, or like what we need to do, I think. And to get the paint off, I'm just rinsing the brush and going back over it, and then wiping the brush on my towel. This will get what I put on there off without getting the whole ceramic red. But see, that's not the right color, and you're gonna have that happen. You know, you're gonna get something painted, and then you look at it when it dries, and you're thinking, that looks terrible. So you go over it again. You know, this is fun. This is not, you don't have to be very meticulous unless you want to be. This is the color medium flesh you've heard me talk about. This color I don't use often because it's very hard to find, and I haven't found it anywhere else yet. I had that khaki. Where did it go? Now, if you need to shake your paints up, and your husband has little ball bearings, little washers, or something like that, drop a few of them in your paints or your nail polish. And then when you shake it up, you'll hear those rattle together. Usually 2 or 3 will do it. And then it will help stir the paint as you shake it. That's why you hear the nail polish. Some of the nail polishes have the ting, ting, ting. They've dropped a ball bearing or something in the nail polish, so when you shake it up, it agitates it, mixes it up better. Makes sense? So if you need help with that with your paints, grab a couple of little ball bearings. Depending on your container. Now, if you have a container this size, you could grab a marble from your kids' collection, drop it in there. You know, whatever works to help agitate the paint and do that. All right, let's try again, because you saw how the light beige worked. It didn't, did it? So now we're going to go in, and I didn't see. I left too much paint on my brush, so it globbed. See how that globbed a little bit? You don't want that. You just want a smooth. Now see, that's changing the tone. So we had to go with a different color because of her. I didn't primer her because I wanted to show you. See, look at that. Just easy. And if you're just like, if you're a kid, you know, and you're just learning to like put on makeup too, I'll tell you something my friend Lynn and her friends told me, because I'm still learning makeup myself. It's like painting a canvas. So some of the same techniques I'm teaching you here can go with the makeup. You don't need to glob either one, and you just want a smooth look. See now, there's something right there. Can you see it? And when you do the paint, it covers it up. Just like foundation with a woman's makeup. Basically, you're changing the color of the skin so that it looks good. When you're going through the hairs, just use the tip of your brush, just the tip. If your brushes are frayed because you couldn't, you know, you've got old brushes or someone gave you some old brushes or whatever, use a pair of scissors to create the tip of the brush. So just not, and don't let the paint crumble up a little. And if you get paint like on the eye when you're trying to go underneath it and stuff, don't freak. Don't worry about fixing it right away. Finish what you're doing. You can let it dry and fix it in the final painting. That's what the final painting is for. Don't flip out on me and try to fix it right away, because you'll mess up the wet paint that you're already working on. And you don't want to do that. So just use the tip and just easy there. See, he's got ear, but he's got that wire. See that wire on the ear? Just, now the tip of my brush needs a little more paint, so I'm going real easy into the paint, grab some more, and then just drag it down. Put it on the tip and drag it down, just like that. See how there's bubbles of paint, globs of paint? Just take it off. Just wipe your brush over it, and then put the excess back on the lid of the lip of the bottle, or your, what do you call these things? Painter's palettes. There's one. There's another style. Now I have a friend who uses wooden ones of these. And when they get all dried, a whole bunch of dried paint on them and stuff, he puts a seal coat over it and uses it as a wall decoration in an art studio. Pretty cool idea. But just take the excess paint off. And you don't have to be perfect. If you get it in areas like the eyes or on the hands or in the hair, because you are doing delicate work around those things. Like I said, don't freak on me, but don't worry about fixing it right now. We're going to probably take several videos and do this little girl together so you can see. But I won't do it all in one sitting because my back, if you're, you know, you have back trouble or whatever, and you want to paint, but you can't sit up for long periods, that's fine. This will not need to be painted all in one session. Do small sessions, walk away. That's actually really good because you get the paint that you've already used get a chance to dry. Some of the colors might change a little as the paint dries. It might become a little lighter or a little darker. And until you're used to the paint, because once you do it a couple of times, you'll understand how, you'll remember how that dried. And that will help you choose your paint for your next project. So, you know, if you need to give yourself time because your kids are running amok and need to be, or the dog needs out, that's a big one on me. He's got a bell attached to the front door and he rings it when he needs out. Sometimes when I'm painting or doing a video, he rings the bell. And I do not ignore that. I trained him myself to ring that bell. And so if he rings the bell, I'm automatically going to go do that because I want him to keep ringing the bell. I was sick last week and I couldn't hear real good for 2 days. And so he didn't hear me ringing the bell. He had to get up in my face and bark at me because I couldn't hear. I think I got bit by a spider or something. We're not sure what caused it. But he stopped using the bell because I wasn't responding to it. So I want to continue the behavior of the bell. So when he rings the bell, no matter what I'm doing, I pause, excuse me, please, and I go take him out because I want to foster the positive. And I don't yell at him if he misses it. If he whines at me or barks at me instead of ringing the bell, I say, okay, what do you need? And I take him over to the bell and I make him ring it before I take him out again. You don't need to do negative reinforcement, but you do need to take your time. And that's with kids or adults. Take your time with them. If you're losing your temper, my mom's trick, I call this Pandora Training because I had a Chihuahua mix named Pandora. This is what I used to do with her. When your dogs make you mad, don't discipline them or anything, or even your kids right away. If you got kids, send them to their room. Put them in the chair in the corner. Let yourself calm down. If you got dogs, put them in the crate. Don't yell at them or hit them and put them in the crate, or just don't even talk to them. Tell them crate, put them in the crate, walk away. Or put a leash on them. This is Pandora Training. Put a leash on them and leash them to something. My mom has exercise equipment now in her living room, and she leashes them to her exercise bike. You know, if two of the dogs get into a fight, she leashes two into different corners, and then she walks away if she's upset. So she's not taking care of the issue right away, but she's letting herself calm down so that she doesn't yell. Because certain breeds of dogs, it's my personal opinion, you got to be careful with them. It's all how you raise them, and it's the same with kids, in my opinion. This is all my opinion, but I'm a very sensitive soul, and if you yell at me, I'm going to take that personally, and I'm going to think I did whatever's wrong, and I'm going to be very upset, even as an adult. That's how I function. I take everything personally, even if I didn't do it. If somebody's upset and yelling, I will get upset. I will have panic attacks, and I will think I did something wrong. And for me, that's bad, because then I will take action to control the situation and, oh, I'm sorry, even if I didn't do it. Part of the fixing that is realizing that happens. But with dogs too, with any animal or children or adults, don't blow, walk away. And sometimes when I walk away, I come to my paints, or I put on music. And those things help me calm down. Now that I lectured you, I want you to look. See how her head's in her hands? We need to get in that dip between her hands and the chin. So again, load the tip of your brush. See, there's too much paint there. So I'm gonna scrape it back into the bottle so that there's just a little, whoop, where's my camera? There we go. There's just a little on the tip. Let me show you. Just very quickly drag it across. You're going to get some on the hands, but that's unavoidable. But in this instance, it doesn't matter, because the hands are going to get painted as well. So just paint the color, and I think this is a very pleasing color for this little guy or girl. We're just going to paint her flesh so that she's all one color. And if you got paint on the back, the upper top part of your brush, see what I did? Put it on there and roll it to get the paint off. You don't want to waste any paint. And then smooth it out. Gently smooth it out. Don't be in a hurry. Don't slap it on. Don't rush and use quick. You know, if you have a disability or something that causes you to jerk, like your dog barks and scares the crap out of you, because that's happened to me a lot, don't worry about it. Finished painting will take care of it. Okay. I'm turning it just a second. See the difference? This is your painted. This is your unpainted. You decide what your painting's going to look like. Even when you're drawing your canvas, this is your imagination taking form. Okay? Don't worry about who's going to buy it. Paint it so that you like it, that you're happy with it. And then someone will see your vision. But put your love into it. Put your vision into it. This is your piece. Nobody else's. Don't, even if you're painting for someone specific, paint it the way you like it. Even if you know, now like the gazebo roof I'm doing, A number one, he don't like a pink roof. B number one, neither do I. So I painted the roof a color I would appreciate. Whenever I'm doing a piece, I try to keep the specific person in mind a little bit. But I generally paint to create my vision of what I want it to be. I try to live my life that way too. I want to create my vision of my life for what's going to work for me. Same thing doesn't work for everybody. Now, be sure you always get in your corners, your crevices. When my sister was teaching me after she had her first child to help with the baby, she said you gotta get on all the cracks and corners. And that's true with your painting too. You got, now see how that's on the dress? See how I've got some on the dress? Don't sweat it. Even if you're a perfectionist, don't sweat it yet. We can sweat it later. Sometimes you have to be a little rougher to get a paint piece, just like I just did. You see, I couldn't get in that corner right there. So what I did was I put a goop of paint there, intentionally. And then I flicked downward to get it in that crevice. Now I got to clean up my gloops of paint, because you don't want to leave gloops of paint everywhere to dry. Your painting is going to be rough, it's going to be uneven, it's going to have bridges, and it's going to look like there's gravel on the painting instead of paint. You want a nice smooth coat, but sometimes you got to get a little rough to get the paint on there. I mean, I've seen people do that on purpose. A friend of mine painted a chair. They did a white base, and then they took their paintbrushes and they flicked paint at the chair. Of course, they had drop cloths all around and all that. And then they would take their paintbrush and quickly rub it through the flicks on the up, down, whatever side. Really hard, really rough. But they were doing that on purpose. They wanted a paint splattered chair. And so they were being rougher. It all depends on what you want it to look like. But just create your vision. Nobody else matters right now. Now, when I'm doing the small details later, I always cover the lips and stuff with the paint color. And then you come in later and change the lip color. But if you do it this way and don't leave the lips for later, you're going to have your flesh color here and around the lips, just like we do. When God painted us, you know, I mean, who else to take inspiration from? He did a darn good job. So make sure you get the flesh. You want it all to be cohesive. Hey, big word. You know, don't worry about defining your eyebrows right now. Just make sure everything's covered with a smooth, nice coat. Now, see the difference? Which do you prefer? Load your brush again. And see, just scrape the side. Just like that. It doesn't matter if there's a goop of paint in the back or at the tip. Those are what you're going to work with. You just don't want goops all the way around. Use your tip of your brush to get at the edges again. And smooth it out. If you need to use a little pressure here, that's fine. You just don't want to jam it down. If you've ever done calligraphy or written with a fountain pen, it's about the same technique. Or painted with a pastry brush. You know how with a pastry brush, you don't push down on the dough. You get the egg wash on the brush and you just let the weight of the brush when you move it across the dough. So you don't break your dough, right? That's the same thing with a paintbrush. Just let the weight of the brush pull the paint downward. You don't have to put lots of pressure, just the weight of the brush. And sometimes to get in between the toes, go sideways. If that doesn't work, here's where this paint on the back of the brush comes in. Drag it down so you got a goop, and then move your goop. And see now, some toes are in between because I've done that, and some aren't. So just put the goop there, and then drag it across to get everybody in between the toes. Don't stress out when you're painting. This is therapy, this is relaxation, this is fun. You don't need to stress it. Now see? Now put your tip in and flick between the toes. That's going to get all the excess out. This is another reason why you cover your table. Because if you do this without your table covered, your table's going to become a lot of pretty colors. Experience on that. Get between your feet. Again, flick down because I can't get the paint in with a gentle touch. But don't leave those gobs anywhere. Nice and easy. See? Now let's finish the legs. Sometimes under the knees, because there's a kneecap there and the flesh, they've made her pretty realistic. You've got your dip in your knee so that she's got one too. Go sideways sometimes to get in those dips. And then smooth it down. See? Flick, flick, flick. And it will get the paint in the crevice. Again, just down smooth. And now we're going to tip. It's good to be able, if you have a paint, if you don't have a turntable and you've got something you can hold in your hand, it's good to maneuver. If you've got a turntable, which mine's occupado at the moment, set it on there. You want a turntable, you don't have one or can't afford one, go to, I'm going to pick on Dollar Tree. Go to Dollar Tree. Get a couple of pie plates or a bigger round cookie sheet and a smaller one. We'll use the pie plate idea because I think it works better. Put marbles in the bottom of the pie plate. Put the second pie plate on top and then put your ceramic in there. Not only will you have something you can spin, but a pie plate has edges that will catch the paint if you're flicking it off or whatever. But then you have a turntable without spending a ton of money. Just because you have a hobby, it doesn't mean it has to take all your money. And nowadays, with everything going on with the COVID and people working from home, people that have lost their jobs, they don't have a lot of money. Now see? Just like that. Nice and easy. And don't forget your undersides. Let's get her finished up, and I'll need a little more on my tip. Now see, that's too much. That's better. I swear I'll get better with this filming thing. I haven't learned exactly how to do it yet. That's why I don't do live streams, is because I can't see the chat. I'm worried that I would miss the chat and what you guys say. So I won't do live streams, just to let you know. But I will do it this way. Now, we got all that. Flip it up. Now look at her arms. If you hadn't have flipped it up, you would have thought it was done. But do you see in there? You see how she has arms right in there? You gotta get everything. So move your paint and flip it up. Now we're going to turn it to the other side and look in there. See, we still need to get her arms. She's got some dress, so later we'll have to flip her up and do the dress in there. And look on the bottom. Bottom of the toes need to be painted as well. Paint the bottom of the toes. Whether you paint the exact bottom of the ceramic, I will keep that and replace it later. Whether you please put the bottom on this, or paint it or not, is up to you. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I like to put gunmetal gray on the bottoms. It's just my personal preference. And that, now turn it sideways and look in the same thing. Look at all your crevices. Make sure you got, and sometimes tipping it upside down helps you see. Now look, see what I missed? I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't tipped the piece up like that. And I got a little more paint on it than I wanted, so I'm gonna take some of the paint off my brush, just like so. And now I'm picking up the goop and I'm putting it back in the bottle to smooth everything out. Getting all my corners, going up. Now look, see the face? I missed that because I hadn't flipped her up. I completely missed that side of the face. When you're getting in between the fingers, use the same technique as the toes. Just put the tip of your brush in and flick it down, and then we will clean up the excess paint. Sometimes you've got to use a little excess paint to get in the corners. We got to get his ear. Get around the hair. Sometimes you're going to get your flesh color on the hair. Now that we pipped it upside down, look at the edge of the hair where the forehead and the hair meet. See how we missed that? So you just do that. Get right there. See, you're going to see things you missed when you maneuver your piece upside down. Going to paint this because there's color inside our nose, inside our mouths. Again, we'll do the tips in between the fingers with the tip of the brush, just like we did the toes, and cover what we missed. We missed that time. Get the corner of the eye and drag it across the lid. You don't need a lot of pressure. Go up with the crevice of the arms, put the paintbrush in, and drag the tip up. Now you're getting all those hidden spots that you missed before. Okay? And just look it around and rotate the piece to make sure you got it all smooth. There's no globs of paint anywhere. And I'll warn you, especially if you have longer hair, you might want to tie it back, man or woman, because sometimes your hair will get paint in it, especially if you have trouble seeing like me and you got to do this bit. You're going to wind up with pretty colors in your hair. And just smooth everything out so there's no lumps and bumps in the paint. Now, I'm putting my paintbrush tip down in the water so it can stand up. This is what we've done together. This is the flesh, which is where we're going to stop today. Another day we'll do another section. But that's painting the flesh on your ceramic. And that's a few tips to help you when you're painting. And some life advice, you know me. Now, some people, I'm autistic, so part of my reason I rattle so much and I talk so much is I get nervous. And when I get nervous, I talk. But also, I do better with more than one thing going at once. If I can divide my attention, I'm a lot calmer and I don't talk so much. If I'm not dividing my attention, I've only got one thing going, I tend to talk more and rattle more. I don't know why, but that's just the way I am. That might be the way someone you know is that way. Or someone may need to divide keep their attention solely on X. If someone has trouble with loud noises, you can use noise-canceling headphones to help them concentrate on the one task. I use some of those sometimes when I'm studying, if I need to really concentrate on one task, or at night when I'm trying to sleep. If they need to divide their attention and you got other things going, you need some quiet, put on some headphones, put on an audiobook. That's great for kids and adults because you can listen to the audiobook, especially if it's something you want to learn about, like a language or self-improvement books. And put those on audio and work on your whatever you're doing. You'll be surprised, even if you're not fully paying attention to the audiobook, how much you will learn just by hearing it. So that's a few ideas on a few different personality traits and dealing with them. I hope you have fun painting. And if you have any questions about what we just did, maybe you're working on ceramic and you can't figure out how to do something, drop them in the comments. I'll leave my email in the comments, and if you have a question or anything, either email me, drop it in the comments, whatever. Have a good day. Bye, everybody.